and welcome to Spaceriffic Reviews. I'm Kevin T. Rodriguez of themoviewizard.com, and this is Marco Caboti. He has made no site worth visiting as far as I can tell.
I don't make websites.
No, you don't.
Today we're going to be reviewing A Christmas Carol, Robert Zemeckis' new 3D fancy film. The best way to put it is when reviewing something like a new version of A Christmas Carol, it's almost like reviewing a production of a Shakespeare play. Because you're not going to really judge the source material. And in most cases when you're judging a film, you're going to base it on the plot, that kind of stuff. And these sort of things you don't, because it's already predetermined.
Right.
And I have to say, you know, you should be familiar with the plot. There's a guy named Scrooge, and he's an asshole, and then three ghosts visit him, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know it, come on. Yeah. Anyway, this is the first adaptation of A Christmas Carol that actually made me question the source material in a weird way. Because most other versions of it, I felt, had some sort of... They softened it. And whether or not you're okay with that, it made it more accessible to a wider audience, obviously, for children, those sort of things. But it made it more of a sweet film. And in Robert Zemeckis' very dark and very mean version of it, it makes it much more of what the story is at its core, which is we're going to scare the hell out of you until you're a good person. And that's not really a fun story.
No.
And it's not really an inspiring story. In a certain respect, Robert Zemeckis has made this film in which he has adapted the book much more thoroughly than most people do. And the closest I can remember to a movie one doing it was actually, oddly, the Muppet one, because it includes most of the scenes that were added into this film. It's not a very long story.
No.
So...
It's only a novella.
Yeah, and so most of it was extremely familiar, and I don't know, I found it very dark, and it was certainly not bad.
Yeah, well, I'm going to pretty much counter that. Yes, it's a dark book, and here's the thing. The Christmas Carol is a classic story, as you know, and somewhere along the line, someone got the impression, well, you know, people kind of like this as a traditional thing, so let's make it accessible to families, and it's a nice little story of redemption, but the journey of that redemption, ghost, death, facing your own demons, having to look at past mistakes that he made that he knows he messed up on. No wonder most kids, when you read them the book, they prefer Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right. Well, yes, that is true. The only thing that I found this to be, because as I was trying to say at the beginning, you kind of compare it to previous, not necessarily always to previous versions of it, but you kind of do that with plays or with Shakespeare too. You kind of go, well, is this guy as good as Olivier? Is this guy as good as this? And I found that Jim Carrey was he was a good Scrooge. He wasn't a particularly amazing Scrooge in any respect, but he was a good Scrooge.
Now, I was glad he played it straightforward, because in the trailers, and we'll have a rant about this later, folks, but Disney has tried very hard to make this look like a fun little romp, and they're showing
this thing is
Scrooge goofing around, and it's like Scrooge is like a very dark, moody person, and what I like about I think though about Scrooge, Jim Carrey's performance of Scrooge is he's already kind of haunted by his past. Most actors, it's pretty easy to play Scrooge in their eyes. It's like you walk around with a hutch, you growl a lot, and then when he's redeemed, you dance. And in this movie, you see a little mist in his eye the whole time, a vacant stare that he just doesn't care about life. And when he, you know, kind of dances at the end, because we're not giving anything away, I hope.
Yeah.
He's
doesn't die.
I mean, he danced a little bit, and then at one point he goes like, oh, like he has, like, yeah, he's still old. He's still got the hutch.
I find this film to be a very, very confusing to me in a certain respect because of the way that they decided to do certain things. It's like you were talking about. We talked about before the part where Scrooge is like hits all the icicles and he shrunk down,
which is pretty fun.
I found that to be the worst freaking moment in the whole film.
Yeah, well,
because this is a movie. This is something we accuse Michael Bay of and other big budget directors that we hate.
Yeah.
Which is when you just do spectacle for the sake of no other reason than just to show off. And that's what that scene was. There's no purpose to it. There's no purpose to any of those scenes that they add into the film.
No, but
Robert Zemeckis decided to adapt this film so perfectly from the book, and then he deviates in the weirdest places to go, oh, okay, see, as long as, we want to keep it as realistic as the book, just like it, except when shit's going to be in 3D. I'm going to go insane then. And it was...
I think he might have miscalculated slightly on that scene, but on the other hand, we don't know how much of that was him and how much of it was Disney, because, I mean, on the other hand, for being so dark thoroughly through, I wouldn't be surprised if some executive came in and said, hey, we need something funny.
They really did just like they had to pad the running time or something. They had to be like, the ghost, even in the book, is like, he points twice. That's like his only thing that he does.
Yeah.
And in this, it was like, he points, and then he goes into this crazy-ass chase for 5 minutes.
But this is probably the scariest Ghost of Christmas Future we've ever seen on film. Yeah.
Well, it depends on how you... I felt that certain things in it were well done. That one was. Mm-hmm. The first Ghost, not at all. That was terrible. That was absolutely hard to watch because Jim Carrey was so distracting as the first Ghost going, hello, these are things of your past. And it was like, God.
You're nitpicking about fairly small things, and here's the thing. We give Michael Bay the crap that we do because he does nothing but this stuff, and, Zemeckis, he made a couple of those little pitfalls, but they weren't many, and they weren't extremely frequent, and it's not like this one moment kills the whole movie, unlike the final shot of Paranormal Activity where it's like, geez, you just screwed it up.
No, for me, I thought that did ruin him. If you're going to be so thorough, it didn't ruin the film. That's not true. It didn't ruin it. But when you're going to be this thorough, to where you include that completely, the thing with the children at the second Ghost's feet, that's such a unrecognizable to anybody's scene because it's almost never shown, that by putting it in there, it has no effect because you're like, what the hell is this? And it's so dated that if you're going to go to that much detail to do that, why would you make up so much random stuff?
I'm going to ask, so are you not recommending this?
That's hard. That's what I was trying to figure out. To me, it was an accurate depiction of the book. It was decently made. I did like some of it. I mean, I liked the fact that it was based off the book and it was realistic. Did I find it as enjoyable as other versions of the film that the story I've seen? No, it wasn't one of my favorites. Very, very briefly toward the end, it did get me a little bit. But other than that, it was, it's worth seeing in 3D, I imagine. It barely passes in my book. With a 3 stars. Like, and that's hard to do.
Okay, well, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think it's definitely worth seeing, whether it's in 3D or not. I do like the fact that it is a grislier version of the Christmas Carol, that they didn't water it down. I liked the animation style. Zemeckis, animation's had a very good year this year, and this is like, this kind of strikes me as another thing where it's like, it looks interesting, and they're trying something different, and, okay, there's a couple little pitfalls they fall into because, people expect this to happen, and the studios probably demand it to some extent, but you're still trying something a little different, and it was amazing how haunting it felt the whole time, which is not what I was expecting at all. I think we can both agree that if parents decide to bring their kids, they really might want to second guess that.
It's scarier than Paranormal Activity. I jumped in this more than I did that piece of crap.